Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Tony. Billy Joel, your boy, just became a dad at the age of 68. Are you ready to be a daddy again?
I'm Tony Kornheiser, sugar daddy.
Yeah, that's the only way.
Yeah.
I mean, Hugh Hefner's gone now.
Yeah.
We didn't even eulogize him, by the way. Hugh Hefner's gone, and somebody's got to step into his role. You got pajamas, silks?
No, I don't.
What are you doing?
They weren't.
Smoking jacket?
No, I never had that. I didn't carry a pipe around. No, I didn't.
But you like that big round bed, though, don't you?
I didn't have bunny ears.
Right
no.
next to L.A. North.
I didn't. Yeah, I think it's on the 8th hole or something like that. I didn't idolize him the way you idolized him.
Stone Cold Idol, baby.
Yeah.
Got it done.
Yeah. You have so many idols. You got Billy Williams. Who are your other idols? You got Ernie Banks.
Bobby Hall.
Yeah, you got Stan Mikita and Hugh Hefner. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Scotty Brooks gets bumped, Joel Embiid talks trash, and in case you didn't hear him the first time, Martavis Bryant wants out.
Enough of him.
But we begin today with Carson Wentz's impressive performance against the Redskins on Monday Night Football. The Eagles' second-year quarterback threw 4 touchdown passes and kept drives alive with his running. On one play, Wentz seemed to be surrounded by the entire Redskins defense and yet emerged and gained 17 yards. Wilbon, with Aaron Rodgers hurt, is Carson Wentz the top quarterback in the NFC?
I think so, Tony. I mean, you also got a guy who's got a Super Bowl ring and been to 2 of them in Russell Wilson, who's in that conference. Who's playing better right now? Wentz is playing the best of any of them. And you can throw the AFC in there, too. And, of course, you always want to sort of set Tom Brady apart for historical perspective. But in terms of mere mortals playing the position, yeah, I'd like to have Wentz, and I think that Philadelphia is right now as good as anybody, if not better, in the entire league.
What makes this question interesting to me is the absurd notion of the question. Carson Wentz is in his second year. Last year, at one point, his record as the starting quarterback after the 3-0 was 2-9. And now we're even discussing this because so many veteran quarterbacks, and I'll stick with the NFC, so many veteran quarterbacks are either injured or having a bad year, and let me list some. Cam Newton's having a terrible year. Matt Ryan's having a terrible year. Eli Manning's having a terrible year. Matthew Stafford, Carson Palmer out. Aaron Rodgers out. Sam Bradford out. So you look around and you say, wow, Carson Wentz might be the best. Now, I would put Drew Brees ahead of him, okay, because he's still in the NFC the last time I looked. My top 4 in the NFC right now would be Drew Brees, Carson Wentz, Russell Wilson, certainly, and I had a 4th. Oh, Dak Prescott. I mean, because they've all been good.
And by the way,
but
3
you can
of those
make
guys
the
are in the same class.
Yeah.
Right? 3 of those guys, Wentz, Dak Prescott, and who else do we say?
No, not with Wilson and not with Brees.
Not with Wilson. That's right. Wilson, you got Brees up there high again.
Yeah, well, here's Brees so far this year.
New Orleans has won 4 straight games, so I don't want to go against Drew Brees in that way.
And he's a Hall of Fame.
But Wentz, Tony, Wentz gets down the field. He can move. He has some of Aaron Rodgers' ability to escape and extend plays. He's got a great arm.
And he's big.
He's 6'5",
and he throws it all down the field.
240.
So what I didn't get to, because it would just make you laugh or choke, is the notion that either Jared Goff or your boy Mitch Trubisky, all 7 passes a game,
Jared Goff is who I was thinking of.
You would list them.
Wait. Jared Goff.
This year.
That's legit.
But what it's about,
that's the other guy
what
in that
it's about
class
is the names that we are used to have capsized so far this year.
People get old. Father Time comes to get people.
Thank you, Shaq.
You know? Father Time, bro. Tony, let's move this show to a bit closer to home and get to the Washington Wizards' now controversial win in Denver. Hope you were watching.
I saw the
controversial because the officials called a technical foul, which resulted in a free throw when Denver's Nikola Jokic bumped Wizards coach Scott Brooks during the timeout. Brooks wanted a tech. He got one. The Nuggets thought Brooks was, flopping, going Vlade. And they were upset that the free throw pushed the 2-point lead to 3 with 32 seconds left. So, Tone, did Jokic deserve a tech for that bump?
I don't know how many times we're going to see this, but there is no question that Jokic initiated the action. Although with his hand right by his face, it is conceivable he did not even see Brooks.
It's a foot shorter.
That's right. And you're not in the line of vision when one guy's 5'11" and one guy is 6'11". Now, Brooks flopped, and Brooks acted, and Brooks called for a referee and said, come out here, fix the ice right in front of me right now, and he got the technical foul. He stole the game. Scotty Brooks did a very wise thing. He stole that game because they go to the line, they score, then they get possession. Bradley Beal scores. Then it's 5 with 12 seconds to go. So he stole it, but no, I didn't think he deserved it.
I didn't think he deserved it either, and I will agree with you about Scotty Brooks, that being a bit of a gamesmanship. from a guy who was a point guard in this league for 10 years.
10 years
So
in the
Scotty
league.
Brooks, people may have forgotten that he played. We haven't forgotten that.
Right.
But I'm going to say this. You've been bumped by a guy much bigger than you. Because Shaq, didn't he pick you up off your feet?
Yeah, he came up from behind me, and suddenly I was 8 feet in the air.
Okay,
he just picked me up.
So let me ask you this. And Shaq is a foot bigger than you.
Yeah, more.
Okay, but let's just say that Jokic at 6'11", that he bumps you. You think Scott Brooks wouldn't be knocked off balance by a guy a foot taller and 75 pounds heavier than him?
He might be. No, I understand.
It's not a flop.
Do you know what that picture looks like? That's Aaron Judge and Jose Altuve. That's what that picture is, the disparity in the height. So I honestly think it's possible that Jokic did not see him.
Oh, did not see him and knocked him off his stride.
Yeah, but I don't think you
wouldn't call it tech.
I don't think you get a team for that.
Intention is supposed to be determined when you issue
Some people will say it was intentional. I didn't think so.
I didn't think so either.
Joel Embiid,
my boy,
is at it again. Last week he went after Hassan Whiteside on Twitter. Last night he went after Andre Drummond, whose Detroit team he just beat. Embiid said, quote, defensively, he doesn't play any defense. When we started the game, he was being aggressive, and he was talking, too. So what I said to myself was, you want to do that? I'm going to kick your bleep then. So that's what I did, unquote. Joel Embiid is beating these centers on the court and obviously off the court as well. Do you think he will maintain this candor?
I hope so. I hope so. There's another player who maintains the candor after 2 championships and another trip to the finals. And some people find it annoying. I find it refreshing, and I love him, and that's Draymond Green. This is the same sort of thing. And Joel Embiid, I told you this after I met and talked to him this summer in L.A. a little bit. He is absolutely charismatic. The question is, can the level of his game stay consistent enough to always exceed the charisma, which is what you'd like out of your charismatic young big men who look like future stars of the league. I hope he will maintain the level of play and the candor, Tony, but only time will tell that.
Do you know who he reminds me of right now?
Who?
He reminds me of Donald Trump in the Republican primary season when he picked off, wait. He picked off people one by one. He singled them out. He defeated them, and he humiliated them. And that's what he goes after everybody he just beat. And this is fine with me except for one thing.
What?
I think you got to play back-to-back once in a while before you say everybody else stinks. You've got to be out there on the court.
The system, the process won't let him
The Sixers are everybody's favorite toy right now because Joel Embiid could be great and Ben Simmons could be great. And you know their record right now? They're 1-3.
Yeah.
So they're not yet. They're not yet.
Let me say this.
Great.
If you ask me what young duo I'd like to have, it's Simmons and Embiid. And we haven't
Are you sure they're physically able to play?
No, how can we?
That's right.
Like you said, it's 4 games.
That's right.
But I'm just saying, when you look at the talent level, Tony, you hope these guys can maintain this and be on the court for 75
Here's the best thing about Embiid being yacky like this.
What?
Because that's the part that reminds me of Shaq. Because that's
or
the part.
Charles.
Yeah. Well, but you go center to center, obviously.
All right. There's another prodigiously talented young big man that virtually nobody knew about, who is starting his career in Golden State. But they know a little bit about him now because of this dunk that Jordan Bell threw down late in the game after throwing himself a pass off the backboard. The Warriors immediately freaked out, didn't know exactly what to make of it, and Steve Kerr tried to apologize to Rick Carlisle, who wasn't having it. Tony, this was the first great oh my God moment of the NBA season, but was Bell out of line?
Out of line?
Yeah.
He was way out of line. I mean, I know I'm going to sound like Brian McCann now. I'm going to be a guardian of the game. But you can't do this. I mean, you just cannot. As long as I mention Brian McCann, if this were baseball, do you know what happens? This kid gets drilled, and then Steph Curry gets drilled as people go Cole Hamels up and down the entire lineup of the Warriors. So Steve Kerr, all the nice things he said was, that was all well and good. But he's got to take this kid aside. He said, not in a blowout and not on somebody else's court. You can't do this because you are inviting you to be clotheslined later in the season.
Can't do it. I'm so glad he did.
I'm so
glad he did. Look, you haven't seen the Warriors that much in person the last 3 years because they start 8 hours after your bedtime.
TV.
Okay, TV's not the same. The greatest thing about the Warriors is the way they entertain. This is an entertainment league. This is not a no-fun league. This league's about entertainment. And the only criticism of the Warriors when they blow big leads and get disinterested is I always thought they hear the sweet Georgia Brown music in their heads and they play to that. And this kid, who the Chicago Bulls decided they would take $3 million on draft night instead of him, smart move. This kid is an extension of that.
But the question is it over the line?
Okay,
it's over the
maybe.
Line.
I'm glad he did it.
You mentioned Draymond Green before. His mom weighed in, so you know this is important.
Let me hear this.
I quote, Jordan, do you explain what? This ain't 10 and under wreck or powder puff.
Good.
Where I'm from, the butt whipping was until the buzzer sounds push the gas. Cole Hamels would hit hard.
You gotta love that.
Martavis Bryant, the ignored wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, was unhappy a few days ago. He's unhappier now. Bryant told our colleague Josina Anderson, quote, "If they don't try to include me more and continue to do the same thing, then I want out, period. Because I just want to be happy. I'd like for it to be here, but if not, then, oh, well, just got to move on," unquote. In response, Steelers coach Mike Tomlin said, quote, "To be honest with you, I haven't visited with him yet because I've had bigger fish to fry. And when I do, I will rain down my judgment and we will move forward," unquote. Wilbon, what should the Steelers do with the unhappy Mr. Bryant?
You can get rid of him. You might get something. You might find an asset. You might really find one. And smart front offices do that. You know, we started talking about this a little bit yesterday, and this reminds me of something that Steve Young said, talking about this generation, that they're not as tribal. You know, they got fantasy teams. They got, they have all these things that substitute for sports as we knew them. So winning is like a third or fourth priority,
That's right.
seventh priority. It's not the same. And so tell Mr. Bryant, you know what? Get out. We just shipped you somewhere else because we got an asset in exchange for you.
This is, I mean, I don't really know when this happened. When an athlete says basically this, I don't really care if we win. I care about me. I want to make myself happy. I call this Kyrie Irving disease.
Stephon Marbury,
maybe it goes back
I
to
don't
that.
want to play with him, with Kevin Garnett.
This is sort of unbelievable to me. And the last three stories we've had about Embiid and the kid who threw the ball off the board for himself and this, I feel like Methuselah on this one. I am so far on the far side of this story. You have to be, too. What do you mean? I want to leave a great team where we got Le'Veon Bell, where we got Antonio Brown, because I'm not getting enough touches.
Care. I want to win, but what's my role? What's coming to me? Huh? What spoils do the victor get? Look, Tony, we can find this in almost every situation in every sport in the country today.
Let's take a break. Coming up, the World Series begins tonight. It's 100 degrees in L.A. Who is that going to help?
The mosquito repellent people? I don't know. Would you rather be sending Keuchel or Kershaw to the mound? We're going to ask Bob Costas.
Seriously, you know how old we sound? Really old.
Well, no, I liked what Jordan Bell did.
Well, you shouldn't.
He should be.
Pardon the Interruption is brought to you by Infinity.
A PTI investigation has revealed that the World Series begins tonight.
No kidding.
And to help us preview it is MLB Network host, Long Island's own Bob Costas. Bob, let's start with this. You are physically in the dugout because it is too hot to be out on the field.
Yes.
102 today. They say 104 tomorrow. How might that affect the first two games in L.A.?
It may affect the fans more than the players, especially those seated in the lower part of the stands. But these guys are used to this at one time or another, July or August in St. Louis or Cincinnati or wherever it might be. You're going to have this kind of heat. I think the more important thing would be that with a starting time slightly after 5 o'clock Pacific time, the shadows will have moved beyond the mound. You won't have that coming out of the sunlight off the pitcher's mound and into the shadows. That's such a disadvantage for the hitters. So I don't think it's going to have that much of an effect.
One thing that should have an effect of the starting pitchers, or at least one of those starting pitchers, who would you rather be sending to the mound in Game 1, Bob, Keuchel or Kershaw?
No disrespect toward Keuchel. And when you can go with Keuchel and then Verlander, most teams would happily accept that. But Clayton Kershaw is already a Hall of Famer, although generally speaking his postseason record is not as good as his regular season record. But he's already a Hall of Famer. Keuchel's a Cy Young Award winner who is working toward a Hall of Fame resume. And maybe more important, as good as Kershaw has been over the course of his career, historically he's even better at Dodger Stadium. So if there's an edge, I would say it's to Kershaw and the Dodgers tonight.
I'd like to pursue that a second because there's no question that Clayton Kershaw is the dominant pitcher of this era. And yet, and this is not unique to him, there are other pitchers like this, but his postseason numbers pale in comparison. Do you have any theory as to why that happens?
You know, there's a randomness to baseball. Some of those games were against the Cardinals. I don't know if the Cardinals had especially strong scouting reports on him or were picking up his pitches. I haven't heard anything to that effect. But left-handed Cardinal hitters did especially well against Kershaw, if memory serves. Of late, although Roberts was careful with him, and this may help in the World Series in case they have to bring him back for a relief stint in a potential Game 7, he's only pitched 17 innings, 17 and a third, I think, in 3 starts so far in this postseason as they made quick work of the Diamondbacks and then quick work of the Cubs, and he's well rested for Game 1. So if he goes in Game 1 and then again in Game 5, and if it goes as far as Game 7, I think they ought to be able to bring him back. He's primed and ready to go. My suspicion is that you'll see something closer to vintage Clayton Kershaw than we have in some previous Octobers.
Bob, we have seen and people have talked about all summer the use of analytics evolving to the point now where sometimes managers are having their own moves dictated by analytics guys in the dugout or in the press box. Can you talk about these two teams and their use of analytics? Because both of these teams are big believers.
Yeah, they are heavily into analytics. All teams now have analytics departments. Jeff Lunau was one of the pioneers. Obviously, Billy Beane was among the very first, and maybe it all starts with Bill James back in the day with the baseball abstract and the coining of the word sabermetrics. But in any case, everybody's on board to a certain extent, but these two teams are really on board. But I've spoken with each manager, Dave Roberts and A.J. Hinch, about that, and they each say that that doesn't take the gut out of it. It doesn't take the instinct out of it. It doesn't take the feel of the clubhouse and having the pulse of your team and having a sense of that and having the proper relationship with each player. It doesn't take that out of play. As Dave Roberts put it to me the other day, analytics are based on macro information. And that macro information is very important and is always taken into account. But each game and maybe each at-bat of each game, each situation, is a micro. And maybe something you have a feel for about this situation or this player on this day in this circumstance, maybe that overrides what analytics would tell you to do most of the time.
We will get you out of here on this so you can get into air conditioning somewhere. It's the obvious question. You looked at both teams.
That would be back at the hotel.
That's right. Which way are you leaning in the World Series?
This Astro team is a very, very good team, and they're going to be good for a long, long time. And they have a very good chance to win this series. But if I had to pick, I would pick the Dodgers, A, because their pitching is lined up, B, because their bullpen, not just Kenley Jansen, but all the bridges to Kenley Jansen, has been absolutely lights out in October, and the Astros have not been that certain about their bullpen. They had to use Lance McCullers for a long stint to close out Game 7, and he was brilliant, but normally he would be a starter for them. So the Dodgers are more rested because the Yankees pushed the Astros to 7. Their bullpen is in better shape. They have a potential 4 out of 7 games at home, and it isn't just home field advantage. In the World Series, when the National League team has the extra home game, I think that's a stronger advantage than the other way around because American League teams are built to a certain extent around the use of their DH. So this takes a Carlos Beltran out of play, and other players that the Astros would normally use perhaps in a DH role, they can only pinch hit them. Whereas Dave Roberts can take any one of some very useful bench players and just plug that guy in for a given night, games 3, 4, and 5 in Houston. So I think that's a strong advantage for any National League team, and in this case, the Dodgers.
Thank you very much, Bob. Get some ice. You look hot. Get ice.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
MLB Network's MLB Tonight will air before and after every World Series game. Let's take a break, but coming up, Tiger Woods hits a stinker. More evidence that he's back?
There you go, getting crazy again. And the leaders of a marathon get routed in the wrong direction. Should the result stand? I never thought we'd have a moment on this show where you tell Bob Costas you're hot.
Yeah, well, I did. Because
Yeah.
he's from Comac South High School, which is not as good as Hewlett High School.
What does that have to do with telling him he's hot?
Well, it was 102 degrees even inside the dugout.
You mean over
I said
there?
Martin higher, sneaky young. I thought it was closer to 70.
No, come
After
on.
managing the Twins for an impressive 13 seasons and getting released in 2014, nobody has heard his name. Now he lands as manager of the Tigers, who stripped themselves of almost all their good players, so the bar is low, and he has great knowledge of that division.
No Verlander, no Justin Upton, no J.D. Martinez. That would help your knowledge if you had those guys.
Happy anniversary, Joe Carter. Around this day 24 years ago in Game 6 of the World Series, he took a 2-2 pitch from Phillies closer Mitch Williams. You sent it over the left field wall for a 3-run walk-off win, giving the Blue Jays their second championship in a row. And that is probably the most famous home run in the history of Canada.
And maybe the league. Didn't this sort of replace Mazeroski?
Oh, do you think so?
I think so, Tony.
No, in the whole league?
Yeah, in the whole history of the league, yeah.
Happy trails to the leaders in the Venice Marathon. The leading pack of runners followed a motorbike into a wrong turn 16 miles into the race, taking them off the main course and costing them precious time. As a result, an Italian runner found himself in first place and eventually won the marathon. Coincidence We will leave that for you to decide.
No, we're not going to leave that to you. First Italian to win the race in 22 years. I'm not leaving it to them. Who was on the bike? Did he have a sign saying, follow me? Well, what was the deal?
Well, it could have been. Do you remember in Animal House where they went down the wrong way and all the musicians crashed into each other? Nowhere. Did you see Animal House?
Yes,
I've seen it 43 times.
Yes,
we go to the big finish.
Let's do it.
Florida coach Jim McElwain says he and his players have received death threats over starting 3-3. Are you surprised?
You know, nothing surprises me about behavior, fan, alumni behavior, particularly in the SEC and particularly among those schools at Florida. Yeah. Browns quarterback Deshaun Kaiser apologized for being at a bar late Friday night, wee hours Saturday. Is that benchable Friday night?
It is benchable, but if you really want to punish him, make him start because the Browns are so terrible, then that is punishment enough.
Yeah.
Marvin Lewis says running back Joe Mixon needs to mature after Mixon asked for more carries. Your thoughts?
Did they not know who Mixon was when they drafted him? Please. Tiger Woods, your boy,
yes,
released a slow-mo video
yes.
of him hitting a stinger.
Yeah.
That excites you?
Very excited. Very excited. Did he grab his back? Did he grab any knee? Is he okay? Is he in Sunday red?
We
want to
both
see him
want
play.
this comeback, but you're getting way carried away.
Last one, Bulls and Cavs tonight. Will Chicago give them a game?
They can't give anybody a game. The Bulls are the worst team in the NBA. No Derrick Rose tonight apparently either. Worst team in the league.
A lot of time. We'll try and do better the next time. And I'm Tony Kornheiser.
We need a process we can believe in. I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads.